Our next speaker is Garry Bailey. Hopefully he's as fun as Bob, but no pressure.
Thank you. I'm Garry Bailey. I'm the editor of the Mercury, and therefore I work for the big end of town.
Not that big.
I think it's rather appropriate, actually, we're standing here in front of the War Memorial, because on here are the names of people who laid down their lives to protect the sort of things we're going to talk about now. I was invited here because I was a signatory to a letter by all Metropolitan Daily newspaper editors, TV station news directors, radio station news directors, condemning in the strongest terms the Australian government's initial knee-jerk reaction to the Wikileaks.
Yeah.
Now, that's not just a convenient way of winning some applause in a crowd like this, or our readers buying a few papers. One of the odd things about working in a media organisation, there are two imperatives. One is to make money. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a media organisation. You wouldn't have an outlet for all your views, which occur there every day in our columns and online. So that's obviously a major imperative. But the other imperative is the support for two things: for openness in our society and the rule of law. Now, sometimes there's a clash between those, and we see it more in the media probably than anywhere else. And yet there's not a great public support often for what media does. If, for example, I called a rally here today in support of Michael Harvey and Gerard McManus. Michael Harvey and Gerard McManus. Exactly. You have no idea. They are at one with people just like you. They faced charges of contempt of court in Melbourne in 2005 for refusing to reveal the sources of their information. Now, the story was that a whistleblower came to them and revealed that the federal government was planning major changes to some pensions. And it's not an issue about Afghanistan war or Iraq or corruption on the highest level, but there is a matter that is absolutely critical to so many people in our community, perhaps some of you: your pensions. The government tried to hide it. McManus and Harvey revealed it. They refused to reveal their sources, and they faced jail. Now, out of that grew an organisation called the Right to Know organisation, which is totally funded by all the media organisations in Australia, and it's conducting what I believe is a relentless campaign for more openness. Now, as a result, and how fortunate it was that a whistleblower was elected as the member for Denison in Hobart, as a result of Andrew Wilkie's entry to Parliament, we will soon getting better whistleblower laws and what's called shield laws for journalists, so we don't have to reveal our sources. Now, that obviously does one obvious thing, is protect journalists, but what it also does, it makes the climate much more comfortable for those who want to blow the whistle, because they know they will have that protection from the journalists they go and see. Now, on to WikiLeaks. We haven't heard much yet about this at this gathering, but WikiLeaks is actually, the power of WikiLeaks has had to rely on traditional media, because without it you wouldn't have heard about it.
Exactly.
Now, if you go on the WikiLeaks site and you want to find out about what's happening in Russia, well, go and get yourself a Russian translator for a start, and then try and find out what the context to all the material is, because it's a great big dumping ground basically, and it's public. But then you've got to have the expertise to go and sort through it, and the much maligned traditional media has been at the absolute vanguard of doing that through in print, in magazines, and online, to a much greater degree than so-called citizen journalists, who would go on there and be absolutely flummoxed, frankly. Carl, I know your work, but how have you gone in digging into WikiLeaks as an individual? It is an impossible task. The Guardian newspaper, which has led the charges, had 45 reporters on it. 45, and it's only scratched the surface. But it's interesting, isn't it? That investment in 45 often highly paid journalists. Is there a commercial benefit to the paper? Maybe, maybe not. But it reveals the other imperative about openness and transparency in our society. So I'm not here to defend traditional media, because you'll all be critics of it at one point or the other, I'm sure. Yeah. But at any time you can write a letter to the editor, post something online, and I would urge you to do it, by the way, using your name. Bob said stand up and be counted. Don't stand up with a mask on, guys. Stand up and be counted. That's what you've got to do. I know it's a bit of fun. I realise that. And it's a great movie, by the way.
It is.
Yeah. And for many of you, the target was the right one, if you happen to see the movie. But people need to stand up and be counted. I think in Tasmania there are some reforms on the way as a result of the Victorian and Commonwealth government reforms to FOI and the Crimes Act. Tasmania, I think, will be following suit. Certainly David Bartlett, before he stepped down, had indicated to the public and to myself and our organisation that FOI laws would be much more accessible, and the cost would be a great deal less. We actually won a major case some years ago where it costs us now very little to pursue an FOI case, because we're a media organisation. I know it's often not the same for community organisations, but at least we fought that battle. And you may realise that there are all sorts of other areas within our community, apart from the high-profile political ones, where freedom of speech is under attack. In South Australia, there are thousands of suppression orders in their courts every year. And News Limited has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting those. In Tasmania, thankfully, and I have to give full praise to this, our Supreme Court is probably one of the, and you may not see it every day, but it's one of the greatest upholders of openness and transparency. And it goes right through their history. Very few suppression orders are imposed in Tasmania, and when they are, we as a media organisation go and fight them, every one of them. Very little publicity, because the stories are not particularly interesting stories, but we spend thousands and lots of man hours, and gives me a hell of a headache having to prepare all this with our lawyers. And we, as I say, won every one. On one celebrated occasion, when a magistrate issued a suppression order, we fought it. The Crown appeared on behalf of the magistrate and declined to even offer an argument. So that's a considerable victory, and we'll continue to do that. But none of this matters unless people like you, as well as us, get behind those campaigns. Now, it's all very easy to criticise the media, and we're up for criticism. We're not perfect, but if you're going to care about the media and what it does, you've also got to support it when it goes into battle for people. And you've got to support it when it reveals things that people don't want revealed. Classic example is the Power story this week, which we revealed, because the government was too stupid to reveal it itself first, and therefore stay in control of the debate. A lot of what Bob says about corruption, etc., I could take into one side and we could have a long argument about what corruption really means. The difference between money changing hands and what's called institutionalised corruption. But so often it's not even that. It's just poor judgment, rank stupidity. Ministers simply too busy to read a brief. On and on it goes. So I wanted to bring the Wikileaks debate sort of back home, so you realise that it may be, the Assange thing may be happening half a world away, but the impact can be on all of us unless we're absolutely vigilant. Thank you.
Thank you, Garry.